right. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Ali Hirji. I'm the lead of the CyberXchange Advisory Committee, as well as the lead of the AI Hub and the Center for Cybersecurity at Durham College. It's my pleasure to welcome Brandy Henderson and Rowe Prudente from the Ownera Group, as well as Julio from Paradigm Ventures Niagara. They're good friends of one of our advisors, Dino Mel, the champion rock star here in Niagara. They're going to be talking to you about why and how the tourism industry needs to prioritize cybersecurity after COVID-19. Please drop all of your questions in the chat feature. Welcome to all of the 20-odd people that are here and growing. Team, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Ali. Really appreciate you having us here today. Rowe, Julio, and myself are really excited to talk about this topic. It's something that hits pretty close to home. We are currently residing and operating our businesses out of Niagara Falls, Ontario. Everybody is aware globally that Niagara Falls is a very large tourism destination, so definitely an industry that we are all passionate about on quite a few levels. So we will go ahead and get started talking a little bit about this topic and how we can all work together to protect the topic. But first, we'll take you through a couple of introductions. Julio?
Yes, hi, my name is, good morning, everybody. My name is Julio Batres-Gavidia, and I'm the president and CEO of Paradigm Ventures Niagara, Inc. We're a small company based in Niagara Falls, Ontario. We primarily do land development, but we also have a branch that does interactive virtual reality experience, as well as augmented reality experience and gesture recognition software. So we have a lot of experience in the tourism industry. In the past, we've owned restaurants, and so we pretty much know a lot about what needs to happen in the tourism industry in regards to cybersecurity and all that.
Thanks. I'm Brandy Henderson, co-founder and executive vice president of Ownera Group, Inc. We actually have, Rowe and I together, have 3 subsidiary companies. One is Ownera Media. It's predominantly what we've been focusing on the last couple of years for publishing and brand marketing in both the printed media space and the digital media space. The digital media space is something that we've been becoming experts in the last couple of years, especially protecting consumer information, publishing information, etc. We also have a tech firm and a consulting firm. And Rowe, we cannot hear you right now.
Oh,
there we go.
I was muted. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rowe. Sometimes I have my Zoom ID as robot because now we're all digital based on a computer. As Brandy said, we own the company called Ownera Group. It's 3 companies under that one umbrella: Ownera Media, Ownera Access, and Ownera Tech. With Ownera Media, we publish our own brand, which is the Reveal magazines. And we publish for other entities as well within Canada. I'm just going to talk a little bit of my background. My background is in finance, and then with the travel industry, which is the airlines, and then cruise ships, and then down to hospitality and media. That's it. So we're going to have fun and talk about cybersecurity because it is what we need.
Thank you. So highlighting our tourism community, we want to welcome everybody that has joined us today. Hoping that we have a couple of people representing the different spaces within the community, from accommodations, hotels, etc. We've got some adventure and recreation. If you just want to throw up your hand, if you're here representing that sector, that would be great. Events and conferences, I know Rowe has a background helping with events in different spaces as well all around the world. Travel and trade, tour companies, food and beverage. We have quite some extensive food and beverage businesses here in Niagara. We've got the Niagara Ale Trail. We've got really great distilleries. It's an incredible landscape for culinary winery tours. So a lot of business in that sector. Overall tourism and transportation services. And if there's anybody here from a different space, go ahead and give a shout out so we can include you in some of our topics today. But it's a pretty robust industry, a pretty robust community. And, you know, we all like to work together and support each other and link up our various services on a regular basis. So today we're going to go through a couple of pretty impressive topics. We're going to talk a little bit about our overall cyber world and understand it a little bit better. We're going to talk about the overall tourism profile and why it's so important to be protected from cyber threats, especially from a monetary perspective and a data perspective. We're going to highlight the actors and the criminals that come after your data in various ways. And then, of course, the methods in which they do that so that we can have a little bit of a hyper awareness to how people can come and attract themselves to you and what they might be disguised as. Some disaster recovery examples. Obviously, we're going to go through a couple of security trends. And then because we are all working in different spaces from a work from home model, there's a lot of remote working. We're going to touch on some of those things. And then before we go, we will leave you with some tips and checklists that you can take home, some tips that you can do on your own to start becoming a little bit more protected and secure with your own data, whether it's applied to your business, your career, or just your own personal data at home. So we'll start by talking a little bit about the cyber world. Rowe, I'll pass it over to you if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, thank you, Brandy. Okay, so I just wanted to really pin down the foundation of cyber world, really, just to differentiate the physical aspect of our world, right, and the cyber world, just to understand it deeply and the basic of it, right? So humankind, it started, you know, way back then, right? Like we developed our rules, we developed our livelihood, we, you know, created our law enforcing methods and so on. And then now when cyber world came about, right, it just came about when the internet surfaced recently in the 1900s. So it is still in an infancy, but if you were to compare that, it's similar to our physical world. With the cyber world, we are now, each individual are actually trying to represent themselves on the cyber world. So if you were to compare, our physical world has space, cyber world has cyberspace. We have our physical form, we have cyber identities, information, cyber information, infrastructure, language and communication, and then it has, you know, economics and of course humanity. And of course you cannot take away the threats and crimes in both worlds. So there are many factors in between the cyber world and the physical aspect of our world. So, but there are two that we would like to point out. It's the people and time, right? So it plays both, like it plays an important role on both worlds, time and people. So let's just define let's define what is cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is the process and practice of defending and protecting the cyber world that you facilitate over computers, servers, mobile devices, electronic systems, networks, and data. These are people representing themselves on the cyber world, right? So cybersecurity is to defend ourselves in this cyber world. Defend and protect. Make sense?
It does.
Oh, okay. I couldn't hear you, Brandy, but.
Sorry, I think I'm cutting out a little bit. Can you hear me now though?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. So overall, we can tap into the profile specific to tourism in the industry and why it's so important to be more educated in some of those areas that Rowe was just mentioning, especially in the defense mechanisms tied to the industry itself. Overall, if we're talking about the tourism sector, why is it attractive? And is there any vulnerabilities? If you take a look at the slide that just talks about the sector overall in Canada, how it's a $102 billion sector, I would argue, I think everybody would agree that that's quite an impressive amount of dollars on the table in order to protect. And when we get a little bit further into the presentation, we've put together some examples as to how not protecting yourself can impact and cost quite a bit financially to recover, whether it's from ransom to downtime and to the impacts on your overall operation. But in Ontario, we have over 180,000 businesses alone, almost 400,000 employees. And if you take a look at the visitor numbers, especially here in Niagara, Toronto, Ottawa, across Canada, we have millions upon millions of visitors that come. So we have billions of dollars of services and goods, receipts related to food, accommodations, visitor spending. And then it just says here, $32.7 billion to provincial GDP is quite a large number as far as an industry goes, and our economics in why we have to protect that investment that we put forth every day. And are we all ready to do that, especially now when we look at how the digital age has changed just so recently since March? Through the pandemic, we have seen such a spike in having to leverage digital tools far more frequently than we ever have before. A lot of our processes that were maybe more manual before are now being converted to digital tools. So this is the time to start, if the investment hasn't been made to be educated in protecting this space, this is the time to do so as we plan to start reopening and moving forward. So we'll talk a little bit about the types of cyber threats specifically. So we've got cybercrime, cyber attacks, and cyber terrorism. So there's all multiple different types of attacks. Being aware of the nuances across them all is really important, because it helps you identify the type of attack that may occur. So cybercrime, single cyber threat actors or groups that are targeting systems for specifically financial gain to create disruption. Cyber attacks or groups that are often politically motivated, looking to seek information, sometimes often to resell that information. And then cyber terrorism, which is undermining electronic systems, creating panic. They like the reaction of what they have chosen to do, as opposed to some of the financial implications with other groups or other types of attacks. So that's just a high level as to how they kind of break out into different groups. And we like to call them actors. So when we're talking about the actors and the different motivations, again, to tailor the different purposes behind them. So when we have a nation or a state attack, those are typically politically driven. Cyber criminals themselves are seeking profit. That's where we see some of the ransoms coming through. There's some examples that we will share later about some ransom examples that hit pretty close to home. I think one of the examples, Rowe, correct me if I'm wrong, but has to do with locking out key cards electronically so that people cannot access any rooms in hotels, accommodations.
Absolutely.
And then literally just holding that information ransom, as in refusing to take the action unless they receive that profit or that ransom. So very different than traditional ransom kidnapping type things, is kidnapping your information and holding it hostage. We've got hacktivists, which are, usually around their ideas and their policies and demanding change. Terrorist groups are a little bit more violent of those, sometimes different religions or passionate about certain values that they want to pursue or seek change, but in a very violent manner. Thrill seekers are looking for almost the popularity, the excitement. They enjoy completely disrupting, whether it's an industry or a situation, and they enjoy the fact that they've created so much disruption and chaos. And then the insider threats are sometimes related to, a disgruntled employee, somebody that was terminated, somebody that was impacted by a situation, and is just trying to get back. So a little bit of revenge towards an association or an organization in some way. So that's just a really good overview as to the different motivations behind cyber attacks. And then we'll go through some of the methods here, and we're gonna have Julio take us through some of this stuff, getting a little bit technical.
Yeah.
You want to take it away, Julio?
Yeah, so we'll talk about like the different methods that cyber attackers use in order to get your information. A lot of it is so we have malware, it's SQL, structured language query injection, phishing, man-in-the-middle attack, and denial of service attack. And I believe we'll go into each of these a little bit more. So malware, pretty much what it is it's a malicious software that you can get through unsolicited email attachments, or actually sometimes the emails can actually look very legitimate. And what they're looking for is they're actually asking you to click something. Or for example, it could be like a PDF document from somebody saying, hey, look, take a look at this. And if it's something that you're not expecting, is something that should be careful about, right? The other thing is, so a lot of cyber criminals use this to make money, or pretty much sometimes they use to get information for politically motivated cyber attacks.
Julio, is this the similar example where you were talking about the people that were impacted by the resume emails?
Yeah, so that's exactly this. For example, a lot of the times, and this is how it can impact the tourism industry. When you're about to reopen, you go and put up like an ad that you're requesting resumes, and all of a sudden you're getting all these unsolicited, sometimes unsolicited resumes, and it will be, it will look legitimate and stuff. And that's why a lot of the times you have to make sure that you use your antivirus software to scan the documents before they come in and before you click on them. It's like a habit that you have to get into to doing every day. Because people will send emails looking like very legitimate, saying, hey, I'm applying to you to the position that you posted on JobGym or on whatever the platform is, what's it called, monster.com. And here's my resume. But when you click on it, it will actually put a malicious malware on it. So that's
we actually got one last year, right? Something similar.
We did. We were able
to prevent it, and then
yeah.
So the type of malware that you can get from a virus that infects the files with a malicious code. You can also get Trojans that are disguised as legitimate software, but in reality, it can still it will work. And in the meantime, you may be sending information or allowing access to your computer. You can also get spyware, which secretly records your activities online, tracking your movement, and also getting passwords and information about you. You can also get ransomware, which is pretty much it locks down files and data with a threat of erasing unless a ransom is paid. The city of Wasaga Beach, I believe a couple of years ago, maybe last year, they actually got all of their files locked up. So all the information that they had in regards to properties, licenses, and pretty much anything that has to do with the city were locked up. They ended up paying, I believe, $35,000. But at the end, after dealing with consultants and upgrading their network, it ended up costing them over $250,000 to get all the information back up.
Wow.
The other thing is, the other things you can get adwares, which is advertising software, which can be used to spread malware. This has been, recently we've had some ads that you go to a website that is not some website that, that is a reliable website. And what will happen is that you will see ads in there running in the background that are actually taking over the resources of your computer and using it to either mine Bitcoin or do whatever stuff background. And then the last thing is botnets. And these are networks of malwares infected computers performing tasks without the permission of the computer user. So that's for that. And for the SQL injection, pretty much what they do with this is they use it to take control and steal data from a database. They exploit vulnerabilities and applications to insert malicious codes, and also the access to the sensitive information contained in the database. So these are things, you know, when you have like a list of your clients, a list of the customers, and when you're trying to use, especially when you're selling online, this is something that they will use to try to get into your databases.
So any kind of actual database that holds all the information in one table is kind of the injection sort of is seeking that table of information to extract it, right?
Exactly. And a lot of these things that we're talking about, I mean, we will talk about methods that in later as to how you can prevent it. But just keep in mind that a lot of it has to do with having the proper policies and procedures and following them, keeping your computers up to date, your software up to date, and that will kind of make it so that you're not susceptible to these kind of attacks. Okay, so we now go to the next one. So phishing, this is where it targets victims with email that appear to be from a legitimate company asking for sensitive information. The ones right now that are coming a lot online are dealing with Revenue Canada. Some are dealing with from your bank. Especially nowadays that through COVID-19 that we're doing everything online. Most people are, like in the past, they were kind of, if they got an email from their bank or anything like that, they will see it as something that, you know, they should be cautious about. Nowadays, because we're doing everything online, most people tend to click on it because they think that's how the bank or the person is communicating with them. But, it dupes the people into handing over the credit card and other personal information. So you gotta be careful with these things. Mostly, if you're not expecting an email from somebody, you have their phone number. Like example, if your bank is calling, call your bank, call your branch, and ask them, you know, and talk to them directly before you provide any information. Your bank will never ask you for information through email and stuff. So man in the middle, this is another one that has been coming up quite a bit, and the way this can affect in the tourism industry will be in coffee shops, in hotel lobbies, restaurants where they have like a public network, and pretty much what it is that people can intercept the communication between two individuals in order to steal the data. Sometimes they don't need to be on the same network, but when you're in an upper network, you're most susceptible to this type of thing. So for example, an unsecure Wi-Fi network, an attacker could intercept data being passed from the victim's device to the network. So having policy and procedures where the password for for the public network is changed on a daily basis at least. It would be ideal if each person gets their own password. Of course, that costs money, but you know, this is kind of the investment that you may have to do in getting the proper equipment and service where you can provide one person, one password. That way you can avoid this kind of attack. Okay, the next one. So the denial of service, this happens quite a bit to a lot of big companies have actually had this kind of attack affect them. And this is where it prevents a computer system from fulfilling legitimate requests by overwhelming the network and service with traffic. We have we are very happy. We use AWS in the back end for a lot of our websites and stuff like that, or when we have conferences too. And that it kind of enables us to keep track of the traffic. So just getting used to getting to the habit of checking your networking traffic on a regular basis, having like alarms. So if you see like a spike of
any abnormalities can be flagged.
You can flag and then deal with it, in a quick manner. Instead of waiting until it shuts down your network or your website. So the latest threats right now that are out there. So there's one that's called the Dridex malware, which is like a financial Trojan, ensures that devices are patched, antivirus is turned on and up to date, and files are backed up. The Roman scam is using dating sites, chat rooms, and apps. Perpetrators take advantage of people seeking new partners. Something that's happening here in Canada quite a bit, apparently, with people traveling to Cuba and other countries and stuff. It dupes victims into giving away personal data. And the Emotet malware is a sophisticated Trojan that can steal data and also load other malware. Emotet thrives in a sophisticated password. So this is a reminder of the importance of creating a secure password to guard against cyber threats. This is something that we will kind of, at the end of this, we'll present a PDF that you can download, and it will show you tips and tricks that you can use to make sure that your password is a strong, protected password.
So moving into some specific types of cybersecurity. We get into some critical infrastructure security, referring to processes, systems, facilities, essentially the overall health, safety, and security, economic well-being of Canadians. Infrastructure is really important in the tourism industry. It's where a lot of actual physical monetary investment goes. So it's really important to protect our overall infrastructure. Obviously, network security is very important as well, especially if you have different layers of departments and things that do different types of work. If you have a large financial department or an analytics department, keeping that network secure and separate from, let's say, the main entrance or a front desk where there's CRM information, customer information, having different layers in your network security does help protecting against malware infections and things like that. It just acts as an additional wall, an additional layer. Application security. I know Rowe has tremendous experience in the various applications in the tourism industry, just from a hotel and an accommodation perspective. Training information, orientation, for example, when you're doing different applications to teach your staff. And we were talking with some of our other partners in the industry about how they themselves admitted that they're guilty of just sharing generic passwords to train and orient their staff to get them ready. What that does is invite sometimes unwanted guests or digital threats into your network without even knowing it.
It could be as simple. Yeah,
no,
sorry.
Go ahead, please.
So for application, it could be as simple as your Outlook, right?
Yeah.
Your Microsoft suite.
Yeah.
So those are applications that you need to protect and secure.
Yeah.
So you need those security applications.
Yeah. And then information and operational security, your processes, your communication cadences, even things that are like verbal or in-transit data, things that need to be protected because they're moving around. Simple processes that require you to print off information and then take it from one station to another, for example. All these different processes need to be looked at to make sure that any transfer of data, whether through digital world or in and out of digital to physical world, is reviewed regularly so that it can remain protected. Cloud security, we have lots of conversations at the office about cloud security. We could probably talk for another half an hour just about protecting yourself in any kind of cloud environment. There are pros and cons. And then, you've got your data loss protection. Again, a lot about policies, processes, making sure that you're backing up regularly, when you're backing up, that you go through specific steps to make sure that you're still secure, that you have updated security standards in place when you're backing up any data or any serverware. And then the last one's really, really important that I think that we are all guilty of at times is making sure that we prioritize end user education. So the people that are on the front lines handling this information, do they know what to look for? Are they trained with what not to click on, even if it looks legitimate? Do they know the triggers that they should be responding to and alerting somebody of? Or is it not something that is taught to everybody in an organization? It's really critical that you include everyone.
Sorry, I'm just going to inject there. It also sometimes as simple as a guest or someone would share a USB and say asking you to print a copy or something like that, right? Like you just have to make sure that you trust those people before you put it in your system.
And scanning it, right? Like it's scanning it with the antivirus software.
Exactly.
So we'll touch a little bit on the guidelines specific for tourism and hospitality. Just a quick time check as we begin to wrap up the session. Overall, from tourism and hospitality, intelligence, metrics, insight tools is a lot of information, which means that there's a lot of vulnerabilities. Simple things from your internal data metrics, your financial metrics, your compliance metrics, but also external information and data sets. So you have consumer information, you have billing information, you have employee records, you have a lot of personal data coming through different transactions and different processes. Making sure that you are hyper aware to the current and up-to-date compliance issues and any kind of infrastructure that you can deploy or update or replace. I know we've also had quite a few meetings with people that we've worked with in the past that look at the investments needed sometimes to upgrade either antiquated software and move to new software. Yes, there is sometimes an investment. A lot of those times those investments can be phased out or payment plans and things can be prorated, but the impact to not protecting that information and not updating certain practices is quite a high potential cost. So, and we'll talk a little bit about some of these examples that we wanted to share with you, just so you have an idea as to what those implications could cost depending on what type of community representation you are in tourism. Rowe, did you want to take us through some of these examples?
Yeah, so
I just wanted to jump in very quickly. You've got about 10 minutes left.
Yep.
So just bear in mind. Go ahead.
All right, so it's just disaster examples here. I dated it from 2017 to 2018, so the most recent ones. In Canada, this company called Recipe Limited, it's actually a ransomware, and they paid $830,000 equivalent in Bitcoin. So it's a ransom note, similar to a physical world, but in a cyber world, it still give you a note. Some of the computers were displayed this exact note to their computers. In 2017, a hotel, just like what Brandy mentioned earlier, a hotel was locked down and all their hotel room guests are locked out of their room. They can't get in, right? It's only a little bit, but the owner of the hotel actually wanted to make it public to warn others to do something, right? Yeah. And they were attacked several times prior to that. The biggest one, and it's the largest in history to date, is the Marriott's incident in 2018. It started in November, but this is actually an acquisition. So when they acquired Starwood, the system was not protected, just like what we said earlier. When you acquire on the hospitality information, when you acquire a vendor, for example, or acquire another company, you make sure that they're all kosher before you acquire their system and merge them into your system, right? So they were affected. 500 million guests' information, including their passport numbers and credit cards, were all stolen. And again, you would think it won't happen again, right? But the actors are actually getting savvy and more religious on their hacking. So 5.2 million guests again are affected. Just for, I don't know how much they paid in ransom, but I think they paid about $123 million in fine for this kind of breach. So it's really important. So those security measures, I know it can get a little expensive when you think about it to put a system in place, but it's worth it to losing a lot of money for ransom. So we have a few surveys here and statistics. So if you can go, there you go. This is a study that was conducted by Blake, Castle, and Greydown is actually a Canadian company. And as you see, they paid ransom. 53% of companies that had malware attacks or ransomware attacks paid a lot of money. And it disrupts their operation and so on. And then the next slide will be amazing. It actually will blow your mind away. So US and Canada is on the top there. It cost $25 billion. This is in total in 2019. This is a 2019 statistics. But if you were to include the downtime costs as well, so equivalent to 16 days, it is at $169 billion paid in ransom, right? And then the next one, this is working from home. So Brandy, you can take it away. It's really a simple, but sometimes.
Yeah, so we'll just highlight a couple of quick points here because it's very relevant to what we're all living and breathing right now. And I believe that Ali mentioned to everybody that these presentations will be shared after, and we'll also send a link to everybody so that if there's something that you wanted to talk about, we'll give everybody the opportunity to reach out to us or for us to reach out to them individually and answer questions. But working from home, whether on a personal computer or on a company computer, does bring new risk because you're bringing in new equipment. So whether you're connecting to different networks than you traditionally do, your types of routers, different software that's accessible on your home network that maybe you're not usually connecting to in an office environment, but really paying attention to Wi-Fi threats and how to protect yourself in a wireless environment, knowing what to look for. But making sure that you cannot allow monitoring to occur on your Wi-Fi network by following some basic steps to protect your actual router, your network encryption, and then overall your network is only as secure as the actual equipment that is placed on the network. So anytime you introduce new equipment to your network, make sure that you're following the same steps that you would if you were to bring in a new computer or a laptop. Things like your kids at home with their Xboxes and PlayStations, or any equipment that could be connected to that network. There are steps that you need to take to review and make sure that it's not allowing unwanted access to your network. Something that your kid does on an Xbox can penetrate and let a threat in onto your company laptop, even if it's got virus protection, even if it's secured through VPN. Those things are still open for attack. So we will go ahead and wrap up with a couple of final thoughts. And I believe that Ali has a link that he can toss into the chat room for everybody to click and get some takeaway information.
Yep.
On. We essentially just put together a one-page PDF that gives you all some steps that you can take on how to take a look at what you're currently using, how you can protect based on what your current habits are, and just steps that everybody can do literally all by themselves to be a little bit more educated. Go ahead, Rowe, please.
Well, I just wanted to, talk about that list. We put together some information that you can do on your own. Like how many of us had written down their current online networks? Like how many social media accounts do you have? How many business networks do you have? Those are secured in passwords with, all your information, or not probably all, but banking for sure. So make a list of those and ensure that your passwords are protected. And there are some tips in there that you could do now without, upgrading, because it's actually a default on your system, like your iPhone or your Android phone, it's already in there. So acquire those, and let's all be cyber citizens and cyber safe.
More secure.
More secure. Occupy
Only exchange
that world.
The information that we want to exchange.
Exactly.
Right.
So pretty much the cybersecurity is like protecting yourself in the world that you represent yourself in the virtual world, right? It's like going into an island and you don't know what's in the island. The next day you get eaten. You don't want to be eaten. You need to protect yourself. So know the rights, know the laws, know how to protect yourself.
Yep. Well, thank you
Awesome.
very much, Brandy, Julio, and Rowe. This was a fascinating discussion on a very interesting area in applying cybersecurity. What I wanted to add is that there were quite a few questions that actually came in talking about different areas of of the tourism industry that are more susceptible, and also looking at the nature of the threats as well as the evolving nature of them right now. One
Yeah.
of the questions that came in was, now that people are not booking hotels, are they still is their data still lurking around in different tourism-based data sets, etc.? So quite a few questions that came in. So Brandy and Roy, what I will do is I'll actually do one step better is I have the link that you shared with me. I'll push that out on the event feed so people have that as soon as I'm done my session. In addition to that, what I would request you is that if you go into the networking areas, look around, there'll be a couple of people that might have questions for you. And if you use the app, you can certainly post something on the event feed for people to follow up and connect with you. The session will be recorded as well, and that will be shared with all of the attendees as well. So with that,
Wonderful.
I want to thank you once again for representing the Niagara region so brilliantly, for doing such a great job. Learned a lot, much appreciated. Enjoy the rest of the conference for the next 2 days. And if you need anything at all, Team CyberX is available to support you. And as the lead on the advisory committee, you can reach out to me at any time, and I'll make sure that you're taken care of. All right. Enjoy the rest of
you.
the
Thank you.
day, and thank you once again.
Ellie.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.